the human philosophy, everyone doesn't feel this way, but enough do, and those that are locked off certainly do, that says, I want to feel good, but I can't feel good as long as you're doing that, so you've got to stop doing that so that I can feel better. And then, what? You're not willing to stop doing that? Well then, I'm going to gather some soldiers, and I'm going to make you stop doing that. What? There's more of you? Yet another generation and another generation? Every time I get an army big enough to put down what I think is something that I disapprove of, it rises up again and again and again and again. In other words, it's time for physical human to finally come to the awareness of you are not ever going to get to where you want to be by pushing against something that you do not want. It defies law, you see.
Yes.
And so here are all of these countries pushing against each other, or individuals, maybe even husbands and wives. It might be the gangs on the street. It might be the gangs in the schools. In other words, there are a whole lot of people unhappy with a whole lot of people, and every single one of them could be happy in the moment if they could finally discover that the freedom that they're reaching for lies in their own ability to stop pushing against what somebody else is doing. That's where your freedom is. Freedom, the freedom that everyone is reaching for, that you think is freedom from oppression or freedom from someone else dominating, the freedom that you're reaching for, that is really at the basis of all of that freedom that you seek, is the freedom from your own resistance that is not allowing the joyful you to really flow. Because when you think about it, every single thing that you want relative to anything, but specifically relative to that, is because you think that in getting rid of that, you would feel better.
Yes.
And it's so refreshing and uplifting and life-giving to personally discover that not one other person has to do one thing differently in order for me to be free.
Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and so many people in my life, too, for allowing me to be the lover
we are
I
appreciating
know I
your
am.
part in all of this, too. We are appreciating your willingness to live the life that you have lived, which brings you to the questions that you hold. And then the questions that you hold, formulate them as you are doing here, which summons us. In other words, it's a continually expanding process. And you are the one out here on the leading edge. If appreciation is to be thrown around, and it is, appreciation must go powerfully to human, out on the leading edge of thought, willingness to experience the contrast, and willingness to give birth to the desire, which is the summoning point of all that we are. Yes.
It's a wonderful way to live. Thank you.
It is indeed. Yes, indeed. You are complete for now?
Yes, I'm complete.
Very good. Yes.
More than complete.
Actually, never complete. Yes, right here.
Hi, Abraham. I'd like some help with the difference between not resisting and being taken advantage of. How do you draw that line without resisting?
Let's start at the beginning of this just a little bit. It feels really good to be the object of someone's loving attention. So when someone looks at you and loves you and praises you for your good deed, we can see how it would make you want to offer more good deeds so that you could experience more of that. But where it turns into a place that does not work very well for you is when it is necessary for their joy for you to be a good deed doer, because now you've got to be with them all the time, and you have to be really fast in your ability to offer good deeds in order to keep them happy. And no one can keep up with any other. In other words, even if it's a one-on-one relationship, and you're actually doing them a disservice by working really hard to give them everything they need in order to feel good, because now they're less happy with almost everybody else in their life who is not willing to do that. So the difference between being an allower and, as someone said to us one day, not being a doormat, is what you are allowing is your source energy, not their behavior. We're not talking about allowing someone else's behavior. We're talking about allowing your energy connection. But the reason the two seem to tie together is the more you are offering unconditional love to another, the more you are allowing your source energy to flow too. So they sort of connect some of the time, but not all of the time. When we talk about being an allowing person, and we talk about allowing the source energy that is really you to flow, now we're not talking about withholding or holding back words or response that you might want to say. We're talking about not allowing yourself to go there negatively. We're talking about working so hard at finding the positive aspects of this person, or going to a virtual reality where there are no negative aspects present, or being so good at selectively sifting that you don't think about the person that is giving you so much grief. You fill your life in thinking about other things, so that you are feeling really good much of the time by your choice of thought. That's what an allower is. So then what happens is, if you've got a really strong-willed negative person in your life who seems determined to make your life miserable through control mechanisms, and you have found the power of not having knee-jerk responses to that, but you are spending time in your bed at night thinking about things that make you feel good, and you are spending time during the day when you are not together looking for positive aspects, so that little by little, and it is a gradual thing, you get feeling better and better and better and better and better. But this person is not changing at all. The universe will deliver to you a mechanism that will allow you a separation from this thing that you do not want. So one of two things always happens. When you get happy, which means when you get tuned in, tapped in, turned on with who you really are, which means when you are allowing more of the fullness of who you really are to radiate through you, people that aren't up to speed with that can't stay in your experience. And magical things that you don't even have to act upon bring it about. In other words, they're transferred out of your office, or they get another job somewhere else, or all kinds of things happen that make them not a part of your physical experience. Or, by your focusing upon the positive aspects and making it such a dominant part of the active vibration within you, it activates more of that within them, and your relationship begins to transform. In other words, either way you win. You just have to remember that allowing isn't allowing someone else's bad behavior. Allowing is allowing yourself to feel good even amidst someone else's bad behavior.
So you're not resisting their bad behavior? I don't get that part of it.
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. When you resist their bad behavior is part of your vibration. Right. So now you've joined them, which means they can never go away. And then you say, well, if they'd stop behaving badly, it would go away. And we say, yes, but you can't control their behavior, but you can control how much you hook into it. You are a mixture of so many potential vibrations. They're not all active within you, but they could be. In other words, you could get together with a friend from long ago and get talking about old times, and you could activate the vibration of those old times so much so that that sort of stuff would start showing up in your experience all over again. Picture yourself, or picture a light board that's about 2 feet by 2 feet, and it has a few hundred lights on it, little tiny lights. And each light represents a vibration within you. And they are on different themes. Some of them are about money, some of them are about relationships, some of them are about your physical body. They are about different subjects, and some of them feel really good when they light up, some of them don't feel very good when they light up. In other words, there's quite a mixture within it. And let's say that you laid in your bed this morning and you focused upon some really good feeling things, and in doing so, you lighted up a section of your light board, and that becomes your point of attraction. Now, as you walk around amongst other light boards with this active light beaming from you, just by your proximity to them or your attention to them, whether they are on the other side of the planet or right in the room with you, their lights are going to start flashing similarly. The flashing lights represent your experience or your world. And so the experience that you're having with people is not nearly as much about who they are as it is about how you're flashing. And how you're flashing is about what you've been giving your attention to and how you've been feeling. Haven't you noticed that when you get discouraged about something or something starts happening, that it just starts happening all over the place? You say, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets. What else could possibly go wrong? And then it shows you. There is an endless streaming of things that could go wrong when you start feeling like that, just like there is an endless stream of things that could go right when you start feeling like that. So when you are wanting to allow in a relationship, you first want to remember that what you're allowing is your connection. And in doing so, you light the aspects of your board that make the probability of lighting the best in the other. Now, let's say that this other person has practiced negative lights for so long that when you light up, those circuits are all dead. Well, then there would be no point of attraction whatsoever, would there? And as you maintain your better feeling pulsing, then you would drift apart. But let's say that you woke up feeling really good, and that was what was lighting, but those aspects of the other person's board are dead, so nothing activates, and then you look over there, and you notice that he's not joining you. And you notice that not only is he not joining you, but he's being pretty mean. And then those aspects of your board light up. And now you got something to do together. See how it works?
Mm-hmm. So what can I do to avoid joining that negativity?
Well, there are a lot of things you can do. The easiest one that we know is when you are apart, practice better feeling thoughts. And start in the easiest way you can. Sometimes it's like going back to an earlier part in your relationship, or by tiptoeing through the best parts of your relationship. And if you can't find anything easily, then focus on other people where it is easy. You can go to a virtual reality and pretend that you have a magical relationship that is really pleasing you. The universe does not know the difference between you being in a virtual reality and offering a vibration, or looking right at your real life reality and offering a vibration. This is the power of the virtual reality. It lights your light board. So when you go into your virtual reality and you live in a place that really pleases you, and you work with people that really are wonderful to work with, and you live with people that are lovely to live with, that's the light that is lighting on your board, which means that's the experience that you have to live. And so that's why we're talking about the more you visualize, the more influence you give to your own point of attraction. Just like the more you observe what is, the more influence you give to your point of attraction. The first step is to say, it's up to me. Because the thing that is hardest in relationships where there's someone who's abusive or negative or just oppressive or just not nice to be with is there is this feeling that I am the victim and that I can't do anything about it, and that that person has to change. And that will get you nowhere, because that person isn't going to change without some sort of influence, and it's not likely that that person is going to change at this point. You're the one that has to change the vibration, and when you change the vibration, then the dynamics can change. And so then the next question is, well, how can I change the dynamics? It's hard to not keep having knee-jerk responses. In other words, if you were driving around in a car that broke down every 5 minutes, it would be hard for you not to drive around a little bit tentative. You're sort of having knee-jerk responses to what is. So in that case, we would say, go into your virtual reality and drive around in a car that doesn't break down, so that eventually when you get into the car that has been breaking down, you don't worry so much about it breaking down, even though it breaks down. In other words, it's about training yourself into a different vibration because it feels better, not because it's factual. And that's what pre-paving is. It's finding a vibration that feels good and maintaining it long enough that manifestation now has to follow it. It's easier to believe with some people than others. It's one of the reasons that parents really like obedient children. When they obey, it's easier to maintain their vibration. When they don't obey, it's harder. But we would not encourage obedience from anyone. We would just encourage offering your own vibration and letting the universe work it out. It's not your job. All you have to do is set a vibrational tone and live happily ever after. Yes. You could have never heard any of this about law of attraction, or about science of deliberate creation, or about law of allowing. You could have just had a friend somewhere along the way who taught you about appreciation. And you could just be, for the most part, an easy appreciator. And you would know everything that you would ever need to know to live the fulfilling experience that you have intended when you came forth into this physical body. There is great love here for you. We are complete.